Perfect. That sounds good. Like that seems like a very solid strategy. And then you talked, like I'm interested to find, obviously there are quite a few different steps here. And I think for the first, like if someone's just starting out, obviously I think they really do need to do this themselves, so that way they can understand each step of the way. Interested to get your thoughts on sort of outsourcing this, and if that's something that you guys look at the 30-day challenge. I know it's not part of the 30-day challenge, but behind the scenes, because I know you guys do a lot of testing in the lab and a lot of different things. How does sort of outsourcing play a role in implementing a lot of this?
Some of this stuff can be outsourced, and certainly now that a lot of it has been coded into Market Samurai, if you train somebody to use Market Samurai effectively, you can do this. Good quality link building is a very hard thing to actually outsource, because there's no grey in link building. You either get it right or you get it wrong. Okay? If you make a comment on a forum or on a blog post and you get the anchor text slightly wrong, or you get the link URL slightly wrong, then any value that may have created has been lost. So I found it very difficult to outsource the high value link building. But the low-value stuff, yes, that can be outsourced. Making a submission to TrafficBug or having an article written and submitting it to these various automated services is relatively straightforward.
Awesome. So we went over that little strategy and talked a little bit about the outsourcing. I am keen, and it's always hard to try and say one single thing is the biggest factor, but I'm keen to get your idea what you'd say is the biggest factor in ranking. Look, there's on page, there's off page.
Backlinks.
Where do you see backlinks? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean backlinks are the sledgehammer of SEO.
Yeah.
You can rank for anything if you've got enough backlinks.
Yeah.
However, that Google is of course over time making it harder and harder and harder for people to get easy backlinks. A lot of the leverage strategies that we had in the past, reciprocal linking, buying backlinks, these strategies are losing favor in Google, and therefore they're no longer available to us. They're not considered to be, linking strategies that meet their terms and conditions. So it gets harder and harder and harder. They're after quality and relevance over the longer term. So my personal view is that you still need to focus on your backlink building, but what you want to be doing is closing the loop, making sure that everything is consistent. So if let's say you're building, you want to rank for a particular keyword, then it's in your interest that keyword is in the URL or the domain name of the page that you're trying to build to get ranked for that keyword.
Yep.
It's in the title, it's in the description, and that the anchor text of the link is consistent with that keyword, so that you've actually got all internal consistency in the eyes of Google.
Yeah.
It's knowing what you're doing to maximize the probability that the spiders will give you a high relevance score for that keyword, and therefore increase your authority in the SERPs.
I think that makes perfect sense with your on-page and off-page. So you mentioned some of the different things as far as for your on-page. Obviously, the single biggest ranking factor you were saying was the backlinks, and then important to close the loop. For your on-page, what do you see as the most key things? You talked a little bit about the title. Are there other areas that you think, yep, these are the single biggest on-page factors?
Single biggest on-page factor is your keywords preferably in the domain, but if it's not in the domain, it's at least in the URL.
Yeah.
That's the single biggest on-page factor. The next biggest on-page factor is the keywords in the title. Those two alone, by far and away, the two biggest on-page factors.
Very cool. With, I suppose, the other thing as well, like mindful that you mentioned as far as like for getting links is clearly the biggest factor for getting a website ranked, and we talked about lots of different ways to getting links, and it's important, I think, to build up a variety of links because that's what happens naturally, and you don't necessarily want to go for one particular method. But I'm always interested to ask, if you had to pick one method for building links and only one method, and we're by no means suggesting that people should only do this, but I'm interested to know where you think the best and the biggest bang for your buck is on getting links.
Article submissions.
Excellent.
It's no-brainer.
Yeah. Very cool. And then I suppose with the article submissions to a particular site, like eZine we mentioned as the granddaddy.
Well, I will always do I treat e-zine articles very, very carefully because they've got a human moderation process. So if I'm having an article written, I'll create a variation of that article which I'll submit manually to e-zine articles.
Yeah.
Having then gotten that through their approval process, because that can take, as you're probably aware, that takes anywhere up to a week or 10 days. Once that has been accepted and is live on the e-zine articles domain, I'll then submit to the other article directories using an automated service. But I won't do that just using duplicate content. I will attempt to spin that to create sufficiently unique variations. So each article submission is at least 30% unique.
Yep. I think you're really sort of tying it all together there, and I like the way that you do have a system and a process and a systematic way which you approach it. And I think that's the real key with the different people that I have been chatting with. A lot of them have a system that they're applying, all about creating this system, and that also sort of feeds to your outsourcers to get really big results and get results. You want to break down what it is that you're doing. There is no exact method for getting a website ranked. There's some good fundamentals that you need to follow, and the individual needs to find a plan and a system that works for them, and then just start applying that in a systemized process. Like you talked about the system, which is step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do that. And I also like the way a lot of it sort of correlates and very closely meshes to what we do to ranking sites as well, because you're following the good fundamentals of what it takes to get a website ranked. Mindful of what you guys do for the 30-day challenge as well, and I know you really do help people sort of go after, when you're just getting started out, you might not go for a really competitive niche, but I'm thinking from your own stuff that you do, where do you sort of think someone where do you go? Do you go after big niches or do you go after little niches?
No, look, I look for niches that have got a sense of vertical integration, where there's a huge traffic reward for the most competitive keywords in that niche, but where I've got a way into the niche. And I'll always start small. You've got to get a foothold, create a little crevice for yourself on the cliff face. And then once you've got a foothold, then you can start building from there. Now, it's much easier to start ranking for a competitive keyword within your niche if you've already got some semblance of authority within that niche. But if you just suddenly start going after a very competitive keyword from brand new with nothing, no authority in your favour, then you're really starting to make it very hard for yourself.
Yeah.
Now the other thing, of course, is, and we haven't talked about this yet, is the reason why you're doing this. What is the reason why you're trying to rank at all? Now, most people have commercial outcomes in mind, but not everybody has a commercial outcome in mind. They might be doing it for charity, for ranking a charity site, or for just building an organic community because they're passionate about that community without ever any intention to make money from that community. So your outcome may also need to be considered as you're sort of going through this process. And in the 30-day challenge, we focus on this, of course, because for most people that are doing the 30-day challenge, they're looking for a commercial outcome. They're looking to make money from this activity. So you want to be confident that as you begin your initial niche testing, that the traffic that you generate actually has a commercial outcome in mind. It will actually, buy something. Because if you can't get any proof or evidence of that, then why would you then spend all this time doing all this ranking work if ultimately the traffic you get isn't going to actually help you to achieve your outcome?